Apple smartphones have long been renowned for their cameras, but the best thing about the Pixel 4 is that it's about so much more than the photos you can take with it. Nonetheless, Google has produced yet another class-leading camera phone. But there are other aspects to be excited about too, like an intuitive, time-saving, secure face unlock system, and a tantalizingly smooth 90Hz display. Yes, photography is still the headliner of this show, it's just not the only act worth sticking around for. And yet, even though the Pixel 4 resembles the most forward-thinking and ambitious handset Google has ever made, it still repeats too many of the company's tired missteps. The phone's battery is small and doesn't last particularly long, which is why some should consider the larger Pixel 4 XL instead. Base storage is a concern, and the screen, while very pretty, is very dim when you put it next to the best offerings from Apple and Samsung. It's those foibles that are the most frustrating, because the Pixel 4 is otherwise incredibly close to perfection. It's yet another masterclass in doing more with less, and building a phone that's far greater than the sum of its parts. The Pixel 4 is the kind of device Google excels at making, and it's easily one of the best smartphones of the year. Daring to be different? 2019 has treated us to phones with motorized pop-out selfie cameras, entire displays that slide down to reveal lenses, the narrowest of bezels, and exotic dazzling exterior finishes. If these are the things you're looking for in your next handset, you should probably look elsewhere, because the Pixel 4 has none of them. In fact, much like its predecessor, the Pixel 4 rejects most of the tech industry's notions of what constitutes thoughtful design. For starters, there's that eyesore of a square camera module on the rear. And while the bezel below the display has been trimmed to iPhone 11's proportions, the bezel above it is about as prominent as the Pixel 3's. On the backside, you won't find glass polish to look like metal that catches spectrums of light and hypnotic rays. Just plain old solid colors. In fact, the rear of this Pixel seems especially sparse now that Google has ditched the capacitive fingerprint sensor, in favor of face unlock. All this is to say that some might call the Pixel 4 ugly, and I can sort of understand that sentiment. When Samsung pushes the limits of packaging with devices like the Galaxy Note 10, which manages to cram in 3 cameras, a stylus compartment, and a generous battery, the Pixel 4 can't help but look a little humdrum. But these things are all a matter of taste, and personally, I dig the Pixel 4's unique aesthetic. I like the playful light-hearted contrast of the clearly white colorway, which combines a frosted Gorilla Glass 5 back with a powdered black aluminum frame, and a traffic cone orange power button. These things shouldn't go together, but against all odds, the funkiness has grown on me. And funky is the best way I can articulate the Pixel 4's vibe. The iPhone 11 Pro is unquestionably a more luxurious handset, with a noticeably heftier build and surgical-grade accoutrements. The Pixel 4's design doesn't match Apple's, but it is delightfully weird, and damn if there isn't space in this oversaturated market for weird. At 5.7 inches, the smaller Pixel 4 is also relatively accommodating for those who prefer compact handsets. One more thing on the design front. While there are only 3 color options for the Pixel 4, Google deserves kudos for sweating the details and differentiating materials between them. Only the white and orange variant sport matte finishes on the back. That's in stark contrast to the all-business black version, which employs a glossier, stealthier, and more slippery sheen. Personally, I prefer the matte version, but I can't deny the premium flair of the shiny option. Smooth display, but far from the brightest. The Pixel line has rarely been praised for its displays, but Google's 4th-generation handset goes a long way toward changing that reputation. The Pixel 4 is the first Google device with a screen capable of refreshing at 90 Hz, a feature the company has dubbed Smooth Display. Smooth Display is on by default, and it essentially means the Pixel's 5.7-inch OLED panel updates on-screen content more frequently than the 60 Hz displays in the majority of phones. A higher refresh rate translates to silkier animations that react to your inputs more immediately, in turn making the entire experience of using your phone snappier. The refresh rate isn't the only improvement though. The Pixel 4 has a new Ambient EQ feature, which modulates the white balance to suit lighting conditions. It's similar to Apple's True Tone system, and it works just as well in this implementation. However, the Pixel 4's display comes crashing down when we measure its peak brightness. At just 429 nits, Google's flagship is merely a candle compared with the white-hot intensity of the iPhone 11 Pro's category-leading 752 nits. The Samsung Galaxy Note 10 also far outmatched the Pixel 4, registering 674 nits. The smartest camera. What's new with the Pixel's camera? In a word, everything. Sure, the main sensor is still rated at 12.2 megapixels. But there's a second shooter now, a 16 megapixel telephoto lens. When you combine it with Google's Super Res zoom technology, it gives the Pixel an incredible 8 times zoom, with limited loss of quality. Google's imaging strategy with the Pixel 4 is to use a mix of computational photography and artificial intelligence to do what hardware alone cannot. Take the new AI white balancing for example, which automatically color corrects strongly tinted images, using a machine learning model, trained on thousands of similar scenarios. Then, there's Live HDR+, which processes your optimized HDR output in real time, so you know what the final photo will look like before you tap the shutter button. Because the Pixel 4 works so much of its magic in the background, it's never easy to tell precisely the difference any one feature is contributing independently. All you can really go on are the results, and they speak for themselves. And there's even more you can do with the Pixel 4's cameras. The new dual exposure controls allow you to adjust highlights and shadows independently while shooting. Although I did play around with dual exposure, I found that Google's HDR system usually knew how to get the best shot, so, in most situations, it won't be particularly relevant. That said, I suspect professionals will love the potential for creativity, face unlock and motion sense. You would hope the Pixel 4's three-dimensional face unlock system would work well, because there's no fingerprint sensor to fall back on. Much like Apple's Face ID technology, Google's system unites an array of infrared cameras, a flood illuminator, and a dot projector to identify your face reliably. Theoretically, Google's Face Unlock is secure enough to be used for mobile payments too. I say theoretically, because it's not yet supported in any of the banking apps I use, which previously worked with fingerprint sensors. That's an issue Google admits it must solve quickly, though it's mostly the responsibility of third-party developers. In practice, however, Google's first crack at Face Unlock works well, and offers a few advantages over Apple's approach. It works when the Pixel 4 is lying flat, and it even registers when the device is held in landscape orientation. The iPhone 11's true depth camera can't match either claim. Overall, the system is very fast, which brings us to the Pixel 4's other party piece, Motion Sense. Built upon Google's Project Soli radar technology, Motion Sense allows the Pixel 4 to monitor mid-air gestures and other movement around it. You can wave your hand above the phone to skip tracks in apps like Spotify and YouTube, or snooze alarms. But the way Motion Sense enhances Face Unlock is probably Google's cleverest use of the feature. The Soli chip knows when you reach for the Pixel 4, even when the phone is sleeping. Once it realizes you're motioning to use your device, it fires up the Face Unlock stack, so it's ready to identify you before you wake it. Those gestures are surprisingly intuitive, but there's a slight learning curve. Motion Sense isn't perfect, and Google still has work to do. But it's not the fundamentals or usability that have me concerned, but that there's so little you can do with Motion Sense right now, outside of controlling media playback and snoozing alarms. The functionality feels pretty limited at launch, similar to Google's Active Edge squeezing feature, which returns from last year's model, and once again has little use, outside of summoning your assistant. Motion Sense has potential, but for now, it feels like a well-intentioned idea without a defining purpose. Performance. The Pixel gets a noticeable performance bump for 2019, moving to Qualcomm's Snapdragon 855 chip, and gaining another 2 GB of RAM compared with the Pixel 3, for a total of 6 GB. Those are necessary improvements, but they still leave the Pixel 4 behind other premium Android phones, not to mention Apple's latest A13 Bionic-powered iPhones, which remain the best-performing smartphones. Anywho, Google's phones have never been about raw performance. Rest assured that the Pixel 4 still feels snappy in regular use, and handles demanding games, like Asphalt 9 and PUBG Mobile, about as well as other flagships. What the benchmarks don't tell you, is that the Pixel 4 has an all-new coprocessor, the Pixel Neural Core. As the name suggests, it's the neural core that is tasked with accelerating machine learning tasks, and handling Google's on-device language models, allowing many assistant tasks to be conducted locally. As a result, Google Assistant feels really fast on the Pixel 4, with commands deciphered at a pace I've never witnessed on another handset. Battery problems. Between the 90Hz display, Soli radar, And all the sensors and projectors necessary for face unlock, the Pixel 4 packs a lot of additional power-sipping components the Pixel 3 did not. So you'd imagine Google would have increased the size of the battery, right? Actually, quite the opposite. At 2800 mAh, the Pixel 4 has a smaller battery than the 2915 mAh unit in the Pixel 3, and a much smaller one compared to the 3700 mAh Pixel 4 XL. That doesn't sound encouraging, and well, the results weren't either. In our battery test, the Pixel 4 called it quits after an average of 8 hours and 16 minutes. It's not only worse than the Pixel 3, 8 hours and 27 minutes, but well off the longevity of the iPhone 11, 11 hours and 16 minutes, and Galaxy S10, 10 hours and 19 minutes. In an age when high-end phone makers are finally listening to consumers and sacrificing some thinness for much-needed endurance, Google is still inexplicably reluctant to follow suit. At least the 18-watt USB-C charger, included in the package, helps the Pixel 4 juice back up rather quickly. It got from 0 to 47% capacity in exactly 30 minutes. Additionally, the Pixel 4 also supports wireless charging, software and special features. Like you'd expect from a Google phone, the Pixel 4 launches with Android 10, and will be supported with updates until 2022. The Pixel 4 also marks live caption's debut. The feature is like omnipresent subtitles across your phone. No matter what's on screen or what app you're using, if there's speech, live caption will spell it out on the fly. There's a short delay between the audio and the caption, because the Pixel 4's neural core is transcribing what it hears in real time. It even modifies earlier words and punctuation based on contextual cues that become evident later. Live caption is a powerful tool that leverages the Pixel 4's artificial intelligence in a useful way. On the other hand, previous Pixels came with unlimited original quality photo storage in Google Photos, but surprisingly, Google has eliminated this hugely beneficial perk. You can still back up content at high quality, but those pictures and videos will be compressed. It's a very disappointing decision, given the Pixel 4's phenomenal imaging. Losing this bonus makes the Pixel 4 not only a less compelling value, but a less attractive mobile camera. Verdict: the Google Pixel 4's subpar battery life is a shame, because this top of the range is an otherwise great all-around device with clever software features and useful differentiators, like Face Unlock, Motion Sense, and the 90Hz screen, and the finest cameras we have ever seen on a phone. And yet, a state-of-the-art handset doesn't mean much, if it doesn't last long enough on a charge, has a display that is too dim to read outdoors, and offers limited storage without the fallback of a cloud-based solution. The Pixel 4 XL could be the answer for people concerned about battery life, but at 6.3 inches, it will put off anyone smitten by the regular model's more pocketable size. It's ironic, because Google is executing all the high-level machine learning stuff, far better than its contemporaries. Yet, in doing so, Google forgot to execute all the basics.